So, if you have never bought a home, or maybe you haven't bought a home in 10 or 20 years, this is the video for you. Today we're going to talk about the 7 things you must do to get ready to purchase a home, especially here in the South Carolina Lowcountry. So let's get after it right now. Do you want to know everything there is to know about the South Carolina Lowcountry, whether it's Bluffton, Beaufort, Hilton Head Island, or Jasper County? Then subscribe below and tap that bell for notifications so you'll be the first to know about everything happening here. My name is David Simcox, host of this channel and a local real estate agent. I get calls and emails every day from people just like you, and I absolutely love it. So whether you're making your move in 3 days, 3 months, or even 3 years, give me a call, send me an email, shoot me a text, or even book a Zoom call, all in the description below so I can help you find your Lowcountry lifestyle. Now, in today's video, we are going to talk about the 7 things that you absolutely should do if you are thinking about buying a home here in the South Carolina Lowcountry. And whether this is your first home, or even if you've been living in your home, you know, maybe somewhere back in New York, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, California, and you've been there for 20 years and you haven't purchased a home in a long time, this will just kind of be a refresher course for things you should do to get prepared. So drum roll, here we go. We're going to start with number 7. Number 7, this is not your forever home. Now, a lot of you people are going to say, David, this is the house we're moving to. This is our retirement home. This is going to be our last home forever. I know that that's what you think, and that very well could be true. But the national statistics say that people live in a home for an average of 5 to 7 years. Now, again, some of these people that are moving to our area are moving to the 55 and better communities, and it very well could be, you know, one of the last home purchases that you make. But even in the Sun Cities and the Margaritavilles and the 55 plus communities, I do find that people still tend to move every 5 to 7 years. Sometimes they move within the community, sometimes they jump over to another neighborhood, and sometimes, you know, they decide that after 5 to 7 years in Sun City, they want to go back and be around the grandkids back up in New York or New Jersey. So, you know, anything can happen. And if this is your first home purchase, then I would say this is definitely not going to be your forever home. And the reason I say that is I think you should focus on what we call your must-haves and your like-to-haves. So your must-haves are going to be things that you can't easily change. So that can be the neighborhood that you want to be in, that can be the floor plan, that could be the fact that it's a 1-story home as opposed to a 2-story home. So if, you know, a lot of the retirees that move here, they really want that ranch style, they really want that 1-story, that's something that's a must-have. Even location, you know, those are things that you can't easily change. Now, people that say, I want a gourmet kitchen, I want luxury appliances, I want a gas cooktop, I want updated bathrooms, you know, things like that. I want light and bright colors. Those are what we call, like, I would like to have those, but those are things that you can change over time. You can remodel, you can, you know, you can do a lot there. So just keep in mind that there is no such thing as the perfect house, and it just doesn't exist. It's like a unicorn. So houses that are going to have all your must-haves and all your like-to-haves, you know, maybe it's possible, but I don't see it very often where everybody gets everything. So kind of separate those 2 lists. Now, number 6, I would say just put it in your mind. And again, this is a personal decision, but don't be what I call house poor. When you go to get pre-qualified, and we'll talk more about that later, the bank is going to tell you how much they say you can afford. But just because they say that you can afford it doesn't mean that you have to max out your payments. Now, with what the bank gives you, it's going to be a combination of principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And here in the South Carolina Lowcountry, that's also going to include your POA fee. Your POA is your property owner association fee. And all those numbers, the bank has in their underwriting basically the most that they're willing to allow you to spend. Now, if you're paying cash, again, that doesn't really apply. But if you're using a bank, just keep in mind that if they say you're qualified for $500,000 or $600,000, that doesn't mean you necessarily have to go that full amount. Because if you max out your house payment, it's going to put some stress on you, and it's going to take away from other things. So if you use all your money on your housing expense, you're going to miss out on vacations possibly. You're going to miss out on dining out. You're going to miss out on entertainment. You know, we live so close over here to Savannah and Beaufort and Charleston. And if you want to go grab that concert in Charleston, or you want to go over to Savannah and you want to watch a Savannah Bananas game, all these fun things that are going around here, if you don't have any money left over at the end of the month, it's not going to be as much fun to live here in the South Carolina Lowcountry. Now, also, studies have shown that in families, and especially in marriages, the number one stressor is money. And there's nothing that causes more marriage disasters and marriage stress than people fighting about money. So I just say, if you talk to a bank and they say you can afford a certain amount, just don't feel like you absolutely have to go to the max of that budget. I'm a big believer in, you know, a little bit of frugality. Also, you know, think about some of the other things that you'd miss out on, like investment opportunities. So if you're spending all your money on your house payment, maybe you can't put as much into your 401k or like that company matching program, or you might miss out on an opportunity to start a business, or, you know, anything like that. You could miss out on some other opportunities, and not to mention financial stress causes physical stress and mental anxiety. So it's not good for your mental health either to max out that budget. Another thing to consider is, you know, young couples especially, do you plan on having kids? And are things going to change after you have kids? Because like for my wife and I, we were a 2-income family. And then when we started having kids, she stopped working and she has stayed home to raise the kids for the past 15 years. And it's been an absolute blessing on our family. I absolutely love it. It's incredible. I can't imagine it any other way. But we did have to go from a 2-income to a 1-income. And that was a little bit of a challenge. And so if you plan for that up front and just say, okay, you know, maybe is one of the partners going to stay home with the babies? Or are we going to have unforeseen daycare expenses or any of those type of things? Just kind of look to the future and figure that out. Now, the flip side of that is, are you potentially going to be making a lot more money in the future? And then maybe you do want to max out what the bank is telling you can afford. For example, we have some family members that it was a young couple. I sold them their house, and he had just got his master's degree in business management or something, healthcare management, and she had just started her job at the port. But they both knew that their career trajectory was going to go up and up and up and up, and it has. They've been in their house now for like 5 years, and they're both probably making double what they were originally. And so if you're, you know, a young couple or a younger person, or even, I guess age really isn't that important, but if you're in a position where maybe you just graduated medical school or you just passed the bar exam and you know that your income is gonna like do this, then maybe you are okay maxing out that budget. So, all right, next item to think about. 30-year mortgage does not mean that you necessarily have to pay on it for 30 years, and most people don't. 30-year mortgage just means that the mortgage is amortized over 30 years. The payments are spread over 30 years, and the bulk majority of that is over, in the beginning, most of that money is going towards your interest payment. Now, there are other types of loan programs. There's 15-year mortgages, there's adjustable rate mortgages, but what I tell people a lot of times is, even if you get a 30-year mortgage, you can pay on it like it's a 15-year. You can print out a 15-year amortization schedule and you can pay extra, but that way you're not required to necessarily pay more, but it is your prerogative. So just because, just because it's a 30-year mortgage doesn't mean that you have to pay on it that whole time. Most likely you're going to sell the house in 5 to 7 years anyway. A lot of people are going to refinance as rates come down, and also you can pay more than the minimum payment and you can pay it off a lot sooner. Now, the other thing I want to talk about with the 30-year mortgage, or just with mortgages in general, is I hear a lot of times people say they're waiting to see if the rates are going to come down here in the South Carolina Lowcountry and nationwide. But the problem with waiting is, in our market and a lot of the United States, but here in Bluffton and Beaufort and Hilton Head Island, the homes are still appreciating. We're still seeing anywhere between a 3 and a 7% appreciation, depending on which neighborhood you're in. So while you're waiting, those home prices are still climbing and climbing and climbing. So if you wait too long, you may end up pricing yourself out of the idea of moving here. And I always make a comparison that there's an old saying, the best time to plant a tree was 50 years ago. And the next best time to plant a tree is today. So really there's no bad time to get into the real estate market. And if you wait, in my opinion, of course, I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't tell you for certain that the homes are going to continue to appreciate, but the trend looks like it is. And we actually have had economists from the National Association of Realtors come and speak with our association here in the Hilton Head and Bluffton market, and they are predicting our area to continue to appreciate because there's so many people that are entering those retirement years and so many people that are moving here, and just based on the sheer volume of people that are entering that age bracket, and we are a major retirement destination, and also so many people are moving internally in the United States. But anyway, if you wait, my opinion is the home prices are going to continue to appreciate, and you can always refinance, okay? So that's just something to think about for the mortgage talk. Now, next item, talk to a lender early. So again, a lot of the folks that are moving here are paying cash, but then a lot of people are still using a lender. And believe it or not, a lot of people are their own lenders. If they have their own investment portfolio, they can actually serve as their own bank. But that's a whole nother topic to talk about. Maybe we'll talk about that in another video. But if you are going to use a bank, you want to start early. You want to start like maybe 4 to 6 months early for a couple of reasons. Number one, just so you get a good financial picture of what your payments are going to be, what your closing costs are going to be. Also, you actually do want them to pull your credit report. A lot of times people say, I don't want to get pre-qualified because I don't want them pulling my credit report and I don't want to getting a ding on my credit. But you actually do want that because you want to know if there's anything on there that you need to be aware of. The worst thing that can happen is you go and you find a house you love and you're financially qualified, but then you go to get a pre-qualification letter because you want to make an offer and you find out that there's some item that's on your credit report that maybe was falsely reported, or something that popped up from a long time ago that you forgot about, or an old medical bill or whatever, and you're like, oh, I can get it taken care of, but you can't get it taken care of in time to make the offer on the perfect house. So you do want to start early, and you want to make sure that you get that pre-qualification letter early in the process, just so that you're ready to go. It's like going shopping with cash in hand. Now, I have a lot of people that move here and they say they're going to pay cash. They're going to sell their house where they're moving from, their exit home, they're coming here, they're going to pay cash. Well, I always say have a conversation with a lender anyway, because there are pros and cons to using a bank and using bank money. And even if you have the cash to pay for a home outright, sometimes it makes more sense to put that money elsewhere and go ahead and use bank money, depending on what kind of return you can get on that money in another location. So those are conversations that you want to have with a lender very early, and not just a lender, but also your financial planner. Maybe you have different financial team on your side that's helping you figure this out. And I can tell you from dealing with a lot of folks that are retiring and moving here, If you ask your financial planner if you should take money out of the market to pay cash for a house, they're almost certainly going to tell you no, because they don't want you taking money out of that account. So I would maybe get a couple of different opinions from different people that don't have skin in the game, so to say. Also keep in mind that when you get that pre-qualification letter, typically that is going to last for about 4 months. All right, now another topic to think about when it comes to loans is at least know the different loan types. And I'm not a mortgage person, so I don't want to talk in too much depth about this, but this goes back to having that conversation with a lender. And so there are multiple different loan types, but the 4 main loan types are conventional, FHA, VA, and USDA. Now, I'd say the vast majority of people that I work with seem to be using the conventional loan. And conventional loan can be anywhere from 3 to 5% minimum down payment. I think if it's your first one, you can do 3%. If it's your second or third or fourth, I think it's 5%. That doesn't mean that's what you have to put down. A lot of people put down 20%, 30%, 40%, but you can put as much of that down as you want. The good thing about the conventional loan is you are going to pay private mortgage insurance up until you have at least 20% equity in that home. So if you put 20% down, then you will not have mortgage insurance. Now, if you pay off over time 20%, then you can have your lender drop the private mortgage insurance. Or the other thing is if the home appreciates so that now you've got 20% equity based on appreciation, again, you can drop that mortgage insurance. So just something to think about on that. The next one is an FHA loan, which FHA is a government-backed loan. And again, I think you can put down a minimum of 3.5%. You don't have to put that amount down. You can put as much as you want. Now, the home is going to also have to qualify, meaning if there's major repairs to be done, they may not loan on it. If the home's not in a certain condition, then they may not loan on that program. But it is a really good program, except for the fact that you are going to pay mortgage insurance on that loan for the life of the loan. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, the next loan is a VA loan, and we do have quite a few military folks, and thank you. We really appreciate your service. And a lot of military folks live here and are buying here because over in Beaufort, we've got the air station, and we also have Parris Island, which is the Marine Corps training depot. So a lot of military personnel, and a lot of them like to use the VA loan. And it is a really great program, and it also has several things you want to think about. So number one, you can go 0% down. So if you don't have a lot of cash to get into the deal, it's a great program. I would say that the downfall of the VA program is they do have a fairly substantial funding fee. And I do have military folks that can get a VA loan and they actually choose to go conventional because they don't want the funding fee. Now, there are some waivers that you can get. I believe if you have disability and there's several other things that can cause you to not have to pay that funding fee. Again, that's a separate question to talk to your bank about. The next type of loan that is available is a USDA loan. And again, this has to be the right house in the right location. This is more for rural properties. So you have to make sure that the house is in a location that the USDA allows, but it also is a 0% down program. So it is a really good option if you're trying to get in for just a small amount of money. So just, again, I'm not going to claim to be an expert on every loan program. That's why I always have you talk to my preferred lender and see what all the different options are. So the next thing that you absolutely want to know before you buy a home here in the Lowcountry is, what is your cash to close? What are you going to have to actually bring to the table when it's time to sign the paperwork? And that is made up of two things. So your cash to close is going to be a combination of one, your down payment, and number two, your closing costs. So your down payment is going to be, it could be 0% if you're doing VA or if you're doing USDA. It could be 3 to 5% if you're doing conventional or if you're doing FHA. It could even be 20% or 30 or 40, depending on how much money you actually want to put down. But that is actual cash that you need to come to the table with. Now, the other side of cash to close is your closing costs. And your closing costs typically will range anywhere from 2 to 3%. It really varies depending on the size of the transaction. But your closing costs are going to be things like your attorney's fees, your appraisal, your inspections, your escrows, your title insurance, your lender fees. And I'll talk a little bit about each one of those, but your attorney fees. So I have a really, really good attorney that I do the majority of my business with, Luke Healy from Healy & 48. Obviously, you can use any attorney you want. It's your choice. But if you don't know any attorneys and you want to use the folks that I use on most of my transactions, they've earned my business because they treat my customers the way that I like to treat my customers. And most of the attorneys around here are all within $50 to $100 of the same price. I believe it's about $650 to $800 depending on various factors for your attorney's fees. Now, we are an attorney state. Some states are title states and some states are attorney states. South Carolina is an attorney state, meaning both parties are going to have their own attorney, and the buyer will have their attorney, seller will have theirs. You don't ever sit down at the same table and sign paperwork together. The buyer signs with their attorney at whatever time and date they want. Seller signs with theirs. When both sets of paperwork is signed and the money goes from point A to point B, then the deal is closed. You will also have appraisal fees. And again, you are not going to order the appraisal. The bank is going to order the appraisal. So you don't have any choice with which appraiser they choose, but that is going to be part of your closing costs at the closing table. Appraisals, again, are based on the size of the property and different things that might need to be taken into account. But on average, I'm seeing anywhere between $600 and $900 for the appraisal. Inspections, again, this is optional. You are not required to have your home inspected, but I highly, highly, highly recommend it during the due diligence phase. And then those items that come up on the inspection report, we can typically negotiate either to have them repaired or to get you a credit. But the home inspection is going to be anywhere from, again, about $600 to about $800. Sometimes it's a little less, sometimes it's a little more. And again, I've got really great home inspectors that I use. Typically, I use Horizon Home Inspections. They've earned my business right now, and I really like working with them. I think they're extremely thorough. They give me a really, really good report, and you typically pay for the home inspection prior to. So that's something that you're going to have to pay for up front. They don't actually put that on your closing cost. Extra inspections that you might need to be aware of that you might have to pay for. If you buy a stucco home, you're going to want a separate stucco inspection because some of the stucco homes around here have had some moisture issues. So we do bring out a separate stucco inspector for that. If you're buying a home on the water, we might want a dock inspection and you'll have to get a separate professional for that. You might need a seawall inspection. If you're buying a home in the country, you might need a septic inspection or you might need a well inspection. So these are all kind of specialized inspections that could be extra costs. You're also going to have your escrows. So your escrows are things like your HOA dues, your taxes, your insurance. So if you're using a bank, the bank is going to want to set aside a certain number of months of these prepaid items. So they might take 3 to 4 months of insurance payments, and they might take 3 to 4 months of taxes, and they might take part of your HOA dues, and they want you to pay all of that, and they put it in an escrow account, and they're going to collect that at closing. And then on a monthly basis, they're also going to have you pay into that, but they want a little bit in the piggy bank before everybody gets started. Title insurance is another thing that you're going to pay at closing, and you'll be required to do this if you get a mortgage, but if you're paying cash, it is optional, but I do highly recommend it. That basically just protects you in case a claim comes back against the house. Basically, if the house has changed hands multiple times over a number of years, if somebody came back and said that they had some rights to that property for some reason, or something was done incorrectly over the chain of title of that property, that kind of covers you against that situation. And then the last thing that you're going to have as part of your closing costs is the lender fees. And so most lenders are going to have some sort of fee attached with the service that they provide, but you could also have like discount points. So if you're buying down the rate, those are called discount points, and that also would be added in to your closing costs. So all of those closing costs plus all of your down payments is going to be part of the cash to close. And the last thing that I want to talk about when thinking about buying a home is hiring a good real estate agent. And I know this is not a selfless plug, so what does a great real estate agent look like? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just being silly. That's not necessarily what I meant to imply. But anyway, if you're going to hire a real estate agent, you're going to want to hire somebody, number one, with a track record, but number two, somebody that's got some volume of transactions in the area that you're looking. So just because somebody has had a real estate agent license for 20 years does not make them qualified, especially if they've only done 1, 2, or 3 deals per year over 20 years. That could actually be a detriment because maybe they're doing things the old way. You want somebody that is very active in the market right now. And you can ask people, how many transactions have you done? How many buyer transactions have you done? And they can share that with you. So you want to make sure that they have a really good track record and that they're really busy in the market right now. The other thing is right now there's some new rules going on with buyer brokers where nationwide, if you're going to go look at houses, you're going to be required to sign a document defining the nature of the relationship that you have with that buyer agent, and also stating how much you're going to pay that buyer broker and who's going to pay it. And so in most cases, you're going to sign a document that says if a home is not paying a commission to the buyer broker, you're basically going to be on the hook to cover the difference or pay your buyer broker. So if you're going to sign a document guaranteeing that that person that's representing you is getting paid, you want to make sure that you're getting the most for your money. So a lot of times people would just go with an agent because, it's their cousin or, their kid's school teacher that has a real estate license on the side, or their barber that has a real estate license on the side. And they're like, whatever, the seller's, paying for it. I don't really care. But if you potentially might be paying all or part of that fee, you want to make sure that you're getting the most for your money. And we can have that conversation one-on-one and I can explain those different scenarios, but make sure that you get somebody with a really good track record. And then the next part of that is make sure that you hire someone that you actually like their personality. Because I've had people, my record right now is 77 homes. So I had one couple that I showed 77 homes to before they purchased their dream home. So you're going to be spending a lot of time in the car with this agent. And you want to make sure that you actually enjoy speaking with them and being around them and you don't find their personality abrasive. Also, find an agent that really knows their numbers, knows their stats. So find somebody that knows the neighborhoods. They need to know, okay, how long do homes in this neighborhood stay on the market? What percentage of asking price are they typically going for? How many showings does it take for a house in this neighborhood typically to go under contract? So you want to make sure that they have that technical knowledge. Also, working with a top agent, you know that they also have great relationships with other top agents. So, if they're one of the top producers, they're also going to associate and know other top producers. And sometimes that can work in your favor because those top producers can have good quality conversations to be like, hey, what do we need to do to get this deal done, to make sure these folks all arrive to the finish line with a smile on their face. If somebody's only doing 1 or 2 or 3 deals a year, they probably don't have a lot of really good, solid relationships with all the other agents out there. And then make sure that your agent has really good problem solving abilities. So they need to know that, hey, if we hit speed bumps, I've got experience. I'm not going to freak out. I'm going to make sure we get over these speed bumps safely, and I know how to problem solve. So that's basically all the things. If you are buying a home here in the South Carolina Lowcountry, or anywhere for that matter, if you've never bought a home before, or if you haven't bought a home in 5, 10, 20 years, that is my highlights of everything that you should be thinking about before you go into this process. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found at least 1 or 2 or 3 nuggets that you can take. Again, if I can help you find your Lowcountry lifestyle, give me a call, send me an email, shoot me a text, or even book a Zoom call, all in the description below. And if you want to stay up to date with the latest and greatest happening here, be sure and like, subscribe, and tap that bell for notifications so you'll know every time I drop a new video. It's been my pleasure spending time with you. I hope to meet you in person at some point, but if not, I will at least see you on the next video.